Hello, in this video we're going to be looking at SData atom feeds. So in the last video we looked at the format of SData atom entries. So that was when we did an SData read request, we got back one entry that described the data for what we had asked for instance, in our customers, customer 1200. Now we're going to look at what you get back when you get back a whole bunch of records. So this is called an SData atom feed. Now, an atom feed is just a internet standard for how things are returned. Now, often in internet language, this is also called an RSS feed, and the two are really the same. There was RSS version 1, and then what's now called an atom feed is really RSS version 2. So that's what we're returning from an SData feed when we return back more than one record. So if you want to really know the nitty-gritty details of atom feeds, you can look at the IETF, and basically oops, sorry, that's the wrong thing. But if you go to that website, you'll see a document that has the details of the whole feed. And the same way, if you go to Sage's website on SData, you can then look at this URL, and it'll give you the same information, but in the context of an SData feed. So rather than being general about what goes in all the fields, it tells you specifically what we put in the fields when we return an SData feed. So it's just a little bit more specific. So what we're going to do in this video is really just go by example in the last time and see what we get in our SData feed. So hopefully this will help you in your programs interpret the results of an SData feed and start reading it. So in later videos we'll look at client software, but for now we're just going to run things in the browser. So this is an SData request that we've been making over and over again in this series of videos. So again, we're going to ask for AR customers, and we're going to be looking to get the customer ID and the name, and starting at record 1 and for a count of 99. And this is on the SAM Inc. database. So if you know SAM Inc., there's only, I think 25 or so customers in there. So that should return all of them. So let's do that. So we know we can go over here and we can paste that request into the browser, hit enter, and we get back a huge swatch of XML. So that's really all the customers in the database mashed together in XML with no carriage returns or extra spaces or anything like that. So just to be more efficient on the return data packets. So what I did here is I cut and paste that return into a text editor, and I added a number of carriage returns just to break up the XML so we could have a look at it. So again, an SData feed comes back, and it's an XML document, so that's why it starts with this bracket question mark XML version 1, and the encoding again is Unicode. And then the type of XML document that's returned is a feed, and this is defined at this web organization where it defines a number of web standards. So it sort of says the schema for the XML returned is defined here. And for people using tools that can look up this sort of information, they can go look up these schemas, and then their tool will automatically know about the fields and such that are in this XML document. And then it has a number of standard fields. Now we follow all the standard fields in an atom feed, so that if you feed your SData request into something that understands atom feeds, such as even Microsoft Excel, it can interpret that feed and handle it in a reasonable manner that makes sense and formats everything for you and such. So it has a number of standard fields like ID, and again in XML you have this opening tag and then a closing tag. The author and name, which we just say is generated. Then we did a search, and it tells us the total number of results we got back was 25, and we asked for starting at 1 and going to 99, or asking for 99 items per page. Now we got all the customer records back in this request, so we so we'll see those in the XML packet. And then, like we looked at in the last video for our entry, there was a whole bunch of URLs included in the feed that gave us information on other related information. And the same thing for a feed. We now have pretty much the same set of URLs, but now for the feed. So again, we have these to tell us how to get the record we just got, the first record, the last record, the schema, the template, and these are things we'll talk about later, and how do we update and do service operations and stuff. So we get the same sort of links that we got last time. Now, if I hadn't got back all the records, so if there were more than 99 records in the database, I would have got back 99 of them, and then I would have got a reference here for not just the first and last, but next and previous. Because basically in SData or in these Atom feeds, if I'm getting so many records, because that's all I want to send over the internet at a time, it gives me the URL to get the next set of records. So that's a very handy feature if you're implementing, putting all the records in a grid, and then you want to, you don't want it to wait forever while it loads 500,000 customers over the internet. It just gives you the first 100, and then you hit next page to get the next, and that just means following the URL. So that's a nice feature of Atom feeds. And then what you get after that is this category, which is sort of a standard thing that's not too important. It's just really saying that it's going to send us back a collection of entries. And then we get the collection of entries. So we looked at what's the format of an entry last time. Oops, and it looks like I took off an extra bracket there when I hit the return or something, but we get the entry. So here it is with some carriage returns, so we can see the one entry, and this is just like in the last video. And then we see all the other entries. So I just put a carriage return after the actual end of the entry tag. So there on one line each is then the rest of the other 24 entries, and then that goes down and ends the feed. So basically that's all a feed is that in here we have a collection of entries, and we get one entry per record that's returned from the feed. And if we were going to write a program to parse the XML, we would just parse it based on what I've shown you in this document. So when it actually, although you get back quite a mess in these feeds, for a computer to parse this apart with a modern XML parser is really simple, and the structure is actually very simple and repeated. Generally, a lot of these things are just used by general tools and not by, a tool that's being written specifically to handle SData. But anyway, those are all the things that are available for you. Thank you.